Did you know that elevators in a Seoul apartment complex started visiting a floor that doesn't exist? In 2019, residents at a luxury Gangnam building began reporting strange incidents. Every night at exactly 3:17 a.m., elevators would stop at the 13th floor, but the building only had 12 floors. Security guard Kim Min-ho thought it was just a glitch until he checked the surveillance footage. The cameras showed elevator doors opening to nothing but solid concrete walls. Then things got worse. Elevators started calling themselves, moving between floors with no one inside. Residents reported hearing voices echoing from empty elevator shafts and sudden temperature drops in the hallways. One night, Kim decided to investigate. He stepped into the malfunctioning elevator on the ground floor. When the doors opened again, he was standing on the building's roof, 20 floors higher than possible. He had no memory of the ride up. The elevator shaft only went to the 12th floor. Kim was found hours later, confused and shaking, with no explanation for how he got there. Did you know that photographs of a real sea monster were hidden from the world for 90 years? In 1934, archivist Margaret Thompson was cataloging old files at the Scottish National Archives when she discovered a sealed envelope. The label read, "Classified Natural History Museum, Dr. Robert Wilson." Wilson was a respected gynecologist with no reason to fake anything. Inside were 7 glass negatives that would change everything. The first photograph showed ripples on Loch Ness. Nothing unusual, but the second revealed a dark shape beneath the surface, at least 30 feet long. The third showed a serpentine neck rising from the water. Then came the shock. The fourth photograph revealed not one creature, but 3. A family group swimming together in formation. But the final image was terrifying. The largest creature's head towered 15 feet above the water, staring directly into the camera lens. Its eyes showed unmistakable intelligence, as if it knew it was being watched. These weren't blurry hoax photos. They were crystal clear evidence, deliberately buried for nearly a century. Did you know that in Mexico, a train still runs every night even though it was destroyed 70 years ago? Miguel Santos worked the night shift inspecting abandoned railway tracks in Guanajuato. Every evening at 11:47 p.m., he heard the same sound echoing through empty tunnels, a train whistle, followed by the rhythmic clacking of wheels on rusted rails. But no trains had run these tracks since 1957, when the line was shut down after a horrific accident. On March 15, 1943, 2 trains collided head-on in these very tunnels, killing 73 passengers instantly. Security cameras installed years later captured something impossible: a full locomotive with passengers visible through the windows, all dressed in 1940s clothing. One night, Miguel decided to wait at the old station platform. The phantom train pulled up exactly on schedule, doors opening with a mechanical hiss. He stepped aboard and immediately felt the train accelerating toward the collision point. The screams of terrified passengers filled his ears as metal twisted and bodies were crushed. At dawn, they found Miguel alone on the empty tracks, forever changed. Did you know that an elevator can stop on floors where no one called it? Oscar Manning was a 34-year-old accountant working late in Denver's Wells Tower on October 15, 2019. At 11:47 p.m., he was alone in the office, heading to his usual parking spot on level B2. The elevator hummed normally, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as he pressed the button. But then it stopped on floor 7. No one had called it. The doors opened to complete darkness. Oscar felt the temperature drop as a tall shadow figure stepped inside. It had no face, no features, just empty space where eyes should be. He couldn't move or speak as the presence filled the small elevator. When the figure turned toward him, Oscar saw those hollow eye sockets staring right through him. He screamed as the elevator suddenly plunged into freefall for exactly 7 seconds. Later, security cameras showed Oscar alone the entire time, but his watch had stopped at exactly 11:59 p.m. Did you know that in 2018, Paranormal Activity completely destroyed an entire quantum physics lab in Warsaw? Dr. Anna Kowalski had been researching parallel dimensions at the Warsaw Institute of Technology for 3 years. Her lab operated normally until strange things started happening in October. Equipment would turn on by itself, even when unplugged from power sources. Complex mathematical equations appeared on whiteboards overnight, written in no one's handwriting. Temperature readings defied all known laws of physics, showing impossible fluctuations. Security cameras captured the most disturbing evidence yet. Laboratory instruments moved on their own, arranging themselves into geometric patterns that shouldn't exist. Then on November 15th, everything exploded. Every single piece of equipment simultaneously burst outward from the center of the room. The debris formed a perfect spiral pattern, like a twisted hurricane frozen in time. But Dr. Kowalski's research notes remained completely untouched at the epicenter. Forensic experts couldn't explain the precision of the destruction. The lab remains sealed to this day. Did you know that a family discovered their kitchen wall was bleeding human blood that belonged to someone dead for 34 years? In winter 2021, the Foster family lived in their 1920s farmhouse in rural Ohio. Every evening at exactly 6:15, Frank, Marie, and their teenage daughter heard the same sound. 3 knocks from inside the kitchen wall, pause, 7 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. The pattern never changed, precise as clockwork. Marie realized it was Morse code spelling "help me." They tore open the wall but found solid wood, no hollow spaces. Yet the knocking continued every single night. Then Marie remembered something terrifying. Her deceased father used this exact same knocking pattern when she was a child. He had died in that very house back in 1987. One night, they decided to knock back. Immediately, thick red blood began pouring from the wall. Forensics confirmed it. The blood belonged to Marie's father. Now the knocking spells out full messages about events that haven't happened yet. Did you know that 4 dead patients sat up in their hospital beds and delivered the same message to a nurse? Patricia Wells had worked the night shift at St. Mary's Hospital in Portland for 10 years. March 8, 2020 started like any other night. Quiet beeping machines, routine medication rounds, and the familiar silence that settled after 2 a.m. At 1:47 a.m., Mr. Johnson in room 314 was officially declared dead. No pulse, no brain activity, death certificate signed. But at 3:22 a.m., Patricia saw him sitting upright in bed, staring directly at her through the window. She checked his chart again. Still dead. No vital signs recorded. Then 3 more recently deceased patients began sitting up in their beds, all turning to look at her simultaneously. Their mouths moved in perfect sync, forming the same chilling words, "Tell them we're still here." Security footage later showed empty beds throughout her entire shift. But 3 other nurses witnessed the exact same thing. Did you know that on a tiny Greek island, 3 days can actually last 3 weeks? In 2020, marine biologist Dr. Elena Papadakis arrived at Gavdos Island for what should have been a simple research trip. She packed supplies for 3 days and set her radio check-ins for every 24 hours. But when she returned to the mainland, her colleagues were frantic. They had been searching for her for 3 weeks. Elena insisted she had only been gone 3 days, but her equipment told a different story. Other visitors reported the same impossible experience. Fishermen aged months in what felt like hours. Tourists found their phones showing dates weeks ahead of when they arrived. GPS systems failed completely near the island's center. Then Elena made a horrifying discovery while reviewing her research footage. She had filmed the same sunset 21 times, convinced each was a new day. When she looked in the mirror, deep wrinkles lined her face that hadn't been there before. Time itself was broken on Gavdos Island. Did you know that 3 lighthouse keepers vanished into thin air, leaving behind impossible evidence? In 1901, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse stood alone on a remote Scottish rock. Thomas Marshall kept perfect daily logs, recording every detail of their isolated duty. His final entry was December 15th, then nothing. When the relief crew arrived, they found untouched meals still warm on the table. Every clock had stopped at exactly 3:14 a.m. Chairs were overturned as if the men had fled in terror. But the lighthouse door was locked from the inside. Marshall's final log entry described severe winds, yet the night had been perfectly calm. He wrote about a strange storm of light approaching from the sea. His last words mentioned screams echoing from the lamp room above. All 3 men had simply disappeared. Only their wet oilskins hung on hooks, and the lighthouse beam kept rotating automatically. No bodies were ever found, and no explanation ever made sense. Did you know that in 2023, a mortician discovered 6 dead bodies moving on their own every single night? Marcus Thompson worked the night shift at Greenwood Funeral Home in Detroit for 8 years. On January 14th, he was preparing bodies for viewing like any other night. Arms crossed, eyes closed, everything perfectly arranged on the gurneys. But when he returned from his 20-minute break, all 6 bodies had moved. They were sitting upright, arms at their sides, all facing the chapel entrance. Security cameras showed them moving in perfect sync while he was gone. The next night, it happened again and again. Each time, the bodies formed different patterns, circles, lines, pointing in specific directions. After 2 weeks of this terror, Marcus realized what they were doing. From above, the arranged bodies spelled out 2 words: "Find us." They were pointing to a hidden basement room containing 23 more corpses from the 1970s. All victims of the same serial killer whose crimes were never solved. The dead had been trying to solve their own murders.